My name is Stephanie Anderson, and I was just 22 when I graduated summa cum laude from a prestigious East Coast university. My parents claimed they couldn't afford my college tuition, but somehow found money to buy my brother Kyle a brand new truck for his future. So I quietly accepted a scholarship and disappeared without a word. For years later, I walked into my graduation ceremony in my cap and gown, just as my mom was desperately begging the dean for my location. The shock on their faces when they saw me is something I will never forget. Before I continue my story, I'd love to know where you're watching from today. Drop your location in the comments, hit that like button, and subscribe if you want to hear more stories about standing up for yourself when family lets you down. I grew up in a comfortable middle-class neighborhood in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Our house wasn't the biggest on the block, but it had 4 bedrooms, a decent backyard with a maple tree I loved to climb, and a kitchen where we gathered for family meals. During my early years, I was especially close to my father, Martin. He would spin me around in the air when he came home from work at the automotive parts factory where he was a manager, and I would squeal with delight. My mother, Laura, was more reserved but showed her love through small gestures like notes in my lunchbox and homemade birthday cakes shaped like whatever I was obsessed with that year. From elementary school, I showed academic promise. In 3rd grade, I won the district spelling bee with the word phenomenal, and in 5th grade, my science fair project on water filtration took 1st place. My parents would beam with pride when teachers praised my work during conferences. They displayed my certificates and medals on the refrigerator until it became a collage of achievements. My brother Kyle was 2 years younger and completely different from me. While I buried myself in books, he was outside throwing footballs with neighborhood kids. He was popular and athletic, qualities my father especially valued as a former high school quarterback himself. Kyle wasn't a bad student, but he wasn't exceptional either, usually bringing home BS and CS, with the occasional A in physical education. Our family had traditions that formed the backbone of my childhood memories. Sunday dinners were sacred, with phones banned and conversation mandatory. Summer camping trips to Lake Michigan were annual adventures filled with swimming, hiking, and stargazing. During these moments, I felt secure in my family's love, even if I sometimes noticed Kyle getting the bigger piece of dessert or a more expensive Christmas gift. High school was where I truly excelled. I graduated as valedictorian with a 4.0 GPA and became a National Merit Scholar. My speech at graduation earned a standing ovation, and I remember catching my father wiping away a tear, which was rare for his stoic personality. My mother hugged me afterward and whispered, "You're going to change the world someday, Stephanie." During my senior year, I applied to 7 universities, including my dream school, an Ivy League institution on the East Coast. The day the thick acceptance letter arrived, I screamed so loud our neighbor Martha came over to check if everything was okay. My parents took us out to dinner that night at the nicest restaurant in town, and my father ordered champagne for a toast, allowing me a small glass despite being underage. "To Stephanie," he said, raising his glass, "the future of the Anderson family." Around this time, we had several conversations about college costs. I knew my dream school was expensive, but my parents had always emphasized education. "We've been saving since you were born," my mother assured me while we calculated costs at the kitchen table. "Between our college fund and financial aid, we'll make it work." My father nodded in agreement, saying, "An investment in education is the best investment we can make." The summer before college was filled with anticipation. I created detailed lists of what I would need for my dorm room and researched my intended major, political science with pre-law track. My mother and I spent a day shopping for twin XL bedding, a desk lamp, and storage containers. We talked about how often I would come home to visit and how we would schedule weekly phone calls. Looking back, I can see subtle signs of favoritism toward Kyle that I dismissed at the time. He had the bigger bedroom even though I was older. His football equipment always seemed to be top of the line, while I used the same backpack until it literally fell apart. When he started high school, my parents bought him a new laptop for schoolwork while I had received their refurbished old one. Kyle was entering his junior year of high school with average grades and uncertain plans for the future. He talked vaguely about maybe going into business or working with Dad at the factory, but nothing concrete. Despite this, my parents never seemed to pressure him about his plans the way they questioned me about career paths and graduate school options. Our family's financial situation, as I understood it, was comfortable but careful. My father had a solid management position, and my mother worked part-time as an administrative assistant at a local dental office. We took modest vacations, drove reliable but not luxury cars, and occasionally splurged on nice dinners out. I had worked part-time at the local library since I was 16, shelving books and helping with children's reading programs, saving most of my earnings for college expenses. Miss Thompson, my English teacher, became a mentor during my high school years. She had graduated from my dream university 30 years earlier and wrote one of my recommendation letters. "You remind me of myself at your age," she told me once, "but you're even more determined." We would discuss literature after class, and she lent me books from her personal collection that weren't in our school library. My friend group consisted of Jessica, Amanda, and Tara, all academically minded like me. Jessica was headed to University of Michigan, Amanda to Northwestern, and Tara was taking a gap year before college. We spent the last weeks of summer having movie nights and promising to stay in touch despite the distance. Throughout that summer, my parents occasionally made comments about finances that I didn't pay much attention to at the time. "Tuition prices are criminal these days," my father muttered while reviewing some paperwork. My mother mentioned having to tighten the belt for the next few years. I assumed these were normal concerns for parents sending a child to an expensive university and continued planning my future with optimism. The conversation that changed everything happened on March 15th, a Tuesday evening during my final semester of high school. We were having lasagna, my favorite meal, which should have been my first clue that something was wrong. My mother had been quieter than usual during dinner, and my father kept clearing his throat the way he did when uncomfortable. "Stephanie," he finally said, setting down his fork with deliberate precision, "your mother and I need to discuss something important with you about college." The seriousness in his voice made my stomach clench. Kyle, sensing the tension, asked to be excused, but my father shook his head. "You should hear this too." My mother reached over and placed her hand on mine. "Honey, we've been looking at our finances and—" She paused, exchanging a glance with my father. "We can't afford to help with your tuition at Eastern Ivy University." The words hit me like a physical blow. "What do you mean? You said we'd been saving since I was born." My father's expression hardened slightly. "We did save, but not nearly enough. With the economy and some unexpected expenses the last few years, we just don't have it. We think it would be better if you started at community college," my mother suggested gently. "Or maybe state university, where tuition is lower. You could transfer later." I felt my face burning and my vision blurring with unshed tears. This couldn't be happening. Not after all the work, all the planning, all the dreams. "But my scholarship covers part of it," I argued, referring to the merit award I'd received that would pay about a quarter of the costs. "It's not enough," my father said firmly. "Even with that, we'd need to take out massive loans. It's just not responsible." Kyle sat uncomfortably across from me, studying his plate. I wondered if he even understood what this meant for me. After dinner, I locked myself in my bedroom and researched financial aid options until my eyes burned. The next morning, I made an appointment with Mr. Garcia, our school guidance counselor. His small office was cluttered with college pennants and motivational posters, and he looked concerned as I explained my situation. "It happens more than you'd think," he sighed. "Parents aren't always upfront about finances until the last minute. But you have options, Stephanie. With your academic record, there are scholarships out there." Over the next 2 weeks, I applied for 12 different scholarships and grants, some requiring essays, others interviews. I took on extra hours at the library and added a weekend job at Sunrise Cafe, serving breakfast to early risers. My social life disappeared as I worked and studied and hoped. The atmosphere at home changed dramatically. Dinners became quiet affairs with conversation limited to pass the salt or how was work. I avoided mentioning college, and my parents seemed relieved by this tacit agreement. Kyle continued his normal teenage life, oblivious to my silent struggle, excited about football camp and his upcoming senior year. Sometimes I overheard my parents on the phone discussing bills or expenses, which seemed to confirm their financial concerns. One night, I heard my mother say, "I don't know how we're going to manage it all," and felt guilty for resenting their inability to fund my education. Jessica noticed my withdrawal first. "You're not yourself anymore," she said one afternoon as we sat in her car after my shift at the cafe. "Talk to me." The kindness in her voice broke my composure, and I cried for the first time since the dinner conversation. Telling her everything. "I feel so stupid," I sobbed. "I actually believed I could go to my dream school." "This isn't your fault," Jessica insisted, handing me tissues from her glove compartment. "And it's not the end of your future. You'll find another way." Miss Thompson also provided unexpected support when she noticed my changed demeanor in class. I confided in her during lunch one day, and she shared her own college struggles. "I worked 3 jobs and ate ramen for 4 years, she told me. "It was hard, but I made it. You will too." Gradually, I accepted that my dream school wasn't going to happen. I reviewed more affordable options and decided on a well-regarded state university that had offered me a larger scholarship. It was an Ivy League, but it had a strong political science program and would leave me with manageable debt. I made peace with this new plan, telling myself that determination mattered more than which university name was on my diploma. My parents seemed genuinely regretful. My mother hugged me when I told them my decision, saying, "I'm so sorry, sweetheart. I wish things were different." My father awkwardly patted my shoulder and added, "You'll still get a great education. That's what matters." I believed they were sincere, which made what happened next all the more devastating. 3 weeks after our financial discussion, I came home early from the cafe because business was slow. It was just past 5. And I expected an empty house since my mother usually worked until 6 on Thursdays and my father until 5:30. As I turned onto our street, I noticed something unusual in our driveway next to my mother's sedan, a gleaming Ford F-150 pickup truck, clearly brand new with temporary tags in the window. My first thought was that one of my parents' friends must be visiting. I parked my ancient Honda Civic at the curb and walked up the driveway, running my hand along the shiny red paint of the truck. It was fully loaded with chrome wheels, a premium sound system visible through the window, and that unmistakable new vehicle smell when I peered inside. As I approached the house, I heard voices from the kitchen through the partially open window. My parents and Kyle were talking excitedly. "Wait until you show your friends," my mother was saying. "They're going to be so impressed." "Just remember," my father added, "this is for your future, son. Not just for joyriding around town." "I know, Dad," Kyle responded, his voice eager. "I'll be responsible. I promise." My legs felt suddenly weak. For his future? What future? Kyle was 16, barely maintaining a B average, with no clear goals or plans. I leaned against the side of the house, trying to make sense of what I was hearing. "Do you think Stephanie will be upset?" My mother's voice was lower now, concerned. There was a pause before my father answered. "She'll understand that different kids have different needs. She's going to college where she won't need a car. Kyle will be working with me at the factory this summer and needs reliable transportation." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. They couldn't afford my college tuition, but could buy a brand new truck that must have cost at least $30,000? My mind raced through calculations I'd heard them make at that fateful dinner, arguments about not being able to spare even $5,000 toward my education. I pushed open the back door, and 3 heads turned toward me in surprise. Stephanie. My mother's voice was too bright, her smile too wide. You're home early. I see we have a new addition to the family, I said. My voice surprisingly steady despite the earthquake happening inside me. Kyle had the decency to look uncomfortable, shifting his weight from one foot to the other. My father stepped forward, car keys dangling from his hand. We got a great deal, he began, as if that explained everything. End of quarter sales quota, and my friend at the dealership pulled some strings. A great deal, I repeated slowly, on a brand new truck. For Kyle. He needs reliable transportation, my mother chimed in. For work and school. And I didn't, I said. Memories flashing of my requests for help with my dying car that had been repeatedly denied due to budget constraints. That's different, my father said, his voice hardening. You're going to be away at college. A college you can't help me pay for, I countered, feeling heat rise in my cheeks. Because of financial difficulties. The same financial difficulties that somehow don't prevent buying a $30,000 truck. It wasn't $30,000, my father argued, as if the exact amount mattered. It's for Kyle's future, my mother added, echoing my father's earlier words that they didn't know I had overheard. Different children have different needs. And my need for education is less important than his need for a new truck? My voice was rising now, the calm facade cracking. Don't be dramatic, my father said dismissively. We're helping you too. We're letting you live here rent-free all summer, aren't we? Kyle finally spoke up. Steph, I didn't ask for this. They surprised me. I looked at my brother. 3 inches taller than me, but suddenly seeming younger. He was caught in the middle, and part of me knew this wasn't his fault. But another part couldn't help resenting his easy acceptance of their favoritism. Congratulations on your truck, I said flatly. I have homework to finish. Stephanie, wait. My mother called as I turned to leave. Let's talk about this. What's there to talk about? My father's voice rose. We can't waste money on overpriced universities when there are perfectly good state schools. That's just common sense. The word waste hung in the air like poison. Waste. My education a waste. I walked out the back door without another word and went to sit under the maple tree in our backyard, the one I'd climbed as a child. The bark was rough against my back as I leaned against it, trying to make sense of what had just happened. With painful clarity, memories of other instances of favoritism surfaced. Kyle's 16th birthday present had been a weekend trip to see a professional football game, while mine had been dinner at a local restaurant. When my laptop died during junior year, I was told to use the family computer until they could afford a replacement months later. Meanwhile, Kyle had received a new gaming system because the old one was obsolete. I pulled out my phone and called Jessica, who answered on the second ring. They bought Kyle a truck, I said without preamble, my voice cracking. A brand new Ford F-150. After telling me they couldn't afford to help with my tuition. Jessica was silent for a moment before responding. Are you serious? That's messed up, Steph. I don't know what to do, I admitted. Watching the sunset paint the sky in colors that seemed too beautiful for such an ugly feeling in my chest. Come over, she offered immediately. My parents are out, and I have ice cream. That night, I barely slept, staring at my ceiling and thinking about the fundamental unfairness of what had happened. I wasn't angry that Kyle got a truck. I was angry about the lie. About being told there was no money when clearly there was, just not for me. The next morning, breakfast was an awkward affair. My mother tried to act normally, asking about my plans for the day as if nothing had happened. My father buried himself in his newspaper. Kyle kept glancing at me apologetically but said little. I have a double shift at the cafe today, I said, answering my mother's question about my plans. It wasn't true, but I needed an excuse to be away from home. Will you be home for dinner? She asked hopefully. Probably not, I replied, gathering my things to leave. Don't wait up. Over the next week, I withdrew further from family interactions, speaking only when necessary and spending as much time as possible at work, at the library, or with friends. I focused on my final exams with laser intensity, channeling my hurt into academic performance. Ms. Thompson noticed the change in me during the last week of classes. She asked me to stay after English AP one day and closed the door for privacy. "Something's wrong," she stated rather than asked. "Your essay on King Lear's family betrayal was unusually passionate." I hesitated, then told her about the truck and the college money situation. As I spoke, her expression shifted from concern to indignation on my behalf. "That's not right," she said simply when I finished. "Not right at all." "What am I supposed to do?" I asked, feeling both childish and desperate for guidance. She considered for a moment before answering. "You can't control their actions or their choices, Stephanie, but you can control yours. Don't let their unfairness determine your path. Find another way." I didn't know then how prophetic her advice would become. 3 days after discovering the truck situation, I received an unexpected letter from Coastal University, a prestigious school on the East Coast that I had applied to but hadn't seriously considered due to distance and cost. I opened it expecting a standard rejection or waitlist notification. Instead, I found myself staring at an offer for a full scholarship covering tuition, room, and board for 4 years. The Founders Academic Excellence Award was given to only 5 students nationwide each year. A handwritten note from the Dean of Admissions mentioned being particularly impressed by my essay on justice and equal opportunity. My hands shook as I read the letter twice more to be sure I wasn't misunderstanding. This was a complete game changer, an escape hatch I hadn't dared hope for. My first instinct was to run downstairs and share the news with my family. Then I remembered the truck and that impulse died instantly. Instead, I folded the letter carefully and placed it in my desk drawer. I needed time to think, to plan, to decide what this meant for my future. The scholarship solved the financial problem, but the school was over 800 miles away. I had never been that far from home before, and the thought was both terrifying and exhilarating. The next day, I requested a meeting with Mr. Garcia during my study hall period. His eyes widened as he read the scholarship letter. "This is extraordinary, Stephanie," he said, looking up at me with genuine excitement. "Coastal University is on par with your original dream school, and a full ride is practically unheard of." "I'm not sure if I should accept," I admitted. "It's so far away. And I've already committed to State University." Mr. Garcia leaned forward, his expression serious. "Listen to me. Opportunities like this don't come along often in life. State University will understand if you withdraw your acceptance for a full scholarship elsewhere. That happens all the time. My parents might not want me to go so far," I began, then stopped, realizing how absurd that concern was given recent events. "Stephanie," Mr. Garcia said gently, "I've known you since freshman year. You're one of the most capable, independent students I've ever counseled. If anyone can handle this transition, it's you." That afternoon, I went to Jessica's house and used her phone to call the number on the scholarship letter. The woman who answered was warm and enthusiastic when I identified myself. "We're so pleased you're considering our offer, Stephanie," she said. "The committee was unanimously impressed by your application." By the end of the call, I had verbally accepted the scholarship and arranged for the official paperwork to be emailed to my personal account rather than sent to my home address. I would need to arrive on campus by June 15th for summer orientation, just 2 weeks after graduation. Once the decision was made, I moved with methodical precision. The next day, I went to a different bank than the one my family used and opened a new account in my name only, transferring my savings from my previous joint account with my parents. It wasn't much, just over $3,000 from my jobs, but it was mine. When no one was home, I searched for and secured my important documents, my birth certificate from the family filing cabinet, my social security card from my mother's desk drawer, my passport from the safe in my parents' closet. I made copies of my immunization records during a routine doctor's appointment. I began packing in small increments, a few items at a time that wouldn't be noticed missing. Books donated to the library. Winter clothes lent to Jessica. Childhood mementos sorted and the most precious ones boxed to store at Amanda's house. I told my friends what I was planning, swearing them to secrecy but needing their support and help. The emotional weight of my decision was considerable. Some nights I lay awake questioning if I was overreacting, if I should confront my parents again and give them another chance to explain. But then I would hear Kyle's truck starting up in the morning, the expensive rumble of its engine a reminder of the painful truth. When it came to financial support, I was clearly the lesser priority. One evening, Kyle knocked on my bedroom door, something he rarely did. He stood awkwardly in the doorway, shifting his weight from one foot to the other. I wanted to say I'm sorry about the truck thing, he said, not quite meeting my eyes. I didn't know they told you they couldn't help with college. For a moment, I considered confiding in him about my plans. But then he continued. The truck is really awesome though. Dad's letting me customize it with new rims next month. Any impulse to share my secret vanished. It's fine, Kyle, I said flatly. Enjoy your truck. 5 different times I drafted notes explaining my departure. 5 times I crumpled them up and threw them away. What could I possibly say that would make them understand when they hadn't bothered to understand me for years? The night before my planned departure, I lay in my childhood bed memorizing details I had always taken for granted. The way the streetlight cast shadows through the curtains onto my ceiling. The slight squeak of the floorboard near my closet. The distant sound of the neighbor's wind chimes when my window was open. Despite everything, this had been my home for 18 years. And leaving without saying goodbye felt momentous. Graduation was 3 days away, but I had arranged with the school to receive my diploma early due to family travel plans. Another small lie in a growing collection. The morning I left, I forced myself to go downstairs for breakfast as usual. My mother was making pancakes, Kyle was already eating cereal. And my father was reading something on his tablet. Good morning, honey, my mother said cheerfully. I made your favorite blueberry pancakes. I accepted a plate and ate mechanically, trying to memorize their faces without being obvious about it. Kyle has that job interview at the dealership this afternoon, my father mentioned, looking pleased. Service department. Good starting position. That's great, I replied automatically. Good luck. What are your plans for the day? My mother asked me. More studying for finals? Just some errands, I said vaguely. Library books to return. Neither of them asked for details. My summer plans rarely seemed to interest them compared to Kyle's activities. At 8:30, my father left for work with a casual see you tonight that he would never fulfill. My mother departed 15 minutes later for her shift at the dental office. Kyle was last, backing his new truck out of the driveway at 9:15 to meet friends before his interview. The moment he was gone, I sprang into action. My 2 suitcases were already mostly packed, hidden in the back of my closet. I added the last few items: my toothbrush, phone charger, the framed photo of my friends from prom, a small stuffed bear that had been a gift from my grandmother before she passed away. I did a final sweep of my room, making sure I hadn't forgotten anything essential. My airline ticket was in my purse, purchased with my own money after finding the cheapest flight available. My taxi was scheduled to arrive at 10 o'clock. As I waited on the front porch with my luggage, I felt strangely calm. The neighborhood was quiet, most people at work or school. Mrs. Bennett across the street waved as she collected her mail, probably assuming I was headed to a friend's house. The taxi arrived precisely on time, an older man with a kind face who loaded my bags without comment. As we pulled away, I allowed myself one last look at the house where I had grown up, storing the image in my memory. At the airport, I sent a brief text to my parents' phones. I'm safe, but need some space. Please don't worry about me. I'll be in touch when I'm ready. Their confused responses began almost immediately, followed by calls I didn't answer. I turned off my phone after boarding the plane, staring out the window as Michigan grew smaller beneath me, distance providing both relief and sadness. When I landed 5 hours later, I was physically and emotionally exhausted. The campus shuttle transported me and my 2 suitcases to the summer housing where I'd been assigned a room. The residence hall was mostly empty, with only a few international students and athletes in early training programs occupying rooms. My assigned space was small but private, a single bed, desk, dresser, and closet. The window overlooked a courtyard with benches and trees. I sat on the bare mattress after the shuttle driver helped deliver my luggage, the silence around me profound. That first night was the hardest. After making my bed with newly purchased sheets and arranging my meager belongings, the reality of my situation hit fully. I was alone in a strange city, with no family support network, starting from scratch. I cried for the first time since discovering the truck, not from anger but from grief for the family relationship I had thought I had. Before falling into an exhausted sleep, I sent one more text to my parents. I am safe and have housing. Please respect my need for space right now. I will contact you when I'm ready to talk. Then I silenced my phone, unable to bear their confusion and demands for explanation. My first semester at Coastal University was a study in contrasts, exhilarating academic challenges alongside crushing homesickness, exciting new friendships alongside lingering grief over my family situation. The campus was beautiful, with historic brick buildings and towering oak trees, but it felt alien compared to the familiar Midwest landscapes I'd grown up with. Despite my full scholarship, money was still tight. The award covered tuition, housing, and a basic meal plan, but not books, supplies, or personal expenses. I found a part-time job at the university library, shelving books and staffing the circulation desk 15 hours a week. The familiar environment of books and quiet study spaces provided comfort in my new surroundings. My roommate, Diana, became my first friend. She was from Arizona, studying environmental science, with a dry sense of humor that made me laugh despite myself. During our second week together, she found me crying after a particularly difficult phone conversation with my mother. Family stuff? She asked simply, sitting on her bed across from mine. I nodded, not ready to explain the full story. Me too, she said, surprising me. My parents divorced last year and are basically using me as their messenger service. It's why I chose a school 3 states away. Something about her matter-of-fact attitude made it easier to share my own situation. That night, over microwave popcorn and soda, I told her everything, instead of the pity I feared. She offered understanding and practical advice. They made their choice, she said firmly. Now you're making yours. No guilt allowed. With Diana's encouragement, I joined a study group for my constitutional law class, where I met Marcus, Jennifer, and Tom, who would become my core friend group. Marcus was brilliant and analytical. Jennifer creative and empathetic, Tom logical and steadying. Together, we formed a support system that helped each other through difficult classes and personal challenges. Academic challenges kept me focused during those early months. The curriculum was rigorous, professors demanding, and competition fierce. My high school success had come relatively easily, but here I had to truly push myself. I spent hours in the library, developed new study strategies, and attended every professor's office hours. The work paid off when I made the dean's list that first semester, a validation I desperately needed. As the holiday season approached, I faced another difficult decision. Diana invited me to join her family in Arizona for Christmas, but I declined, not wanting to impose. Instead, I arranged to stay in one of the few dorms that remained open during the break. The campus was eerily quiet, with only international students and a handful of others like me remaining. On Christmas morning, I received a card from home with a check for $500 and a note in my mother's handwriting. "We miss you. Please call. Love, Mom and Dad." Kyle had scrawled his name underneath with "Miss you, sis." I kept the card, but didn't cash the check, not ready to accept what felt like conscience money. My communication with my family was minimal during that first year. Occasional texts to let them know I was alive and safe, brief responses to their increasingly worried messages. Kyle reached out separately sometimes, with casual updates about school or questions about how I was doing. I responded more openly to him, recognizing he wasn't primarily responsible for our parents' choices. "Mom cries a lot," he texted once. "Dad pretends everything is fine, but he asks about you all the time." "I'm not ready," I replied, still figuring things out. "I get it," he responded. "Just know they're worried." Despite the emotional complications, I thrived academically and socially as the year progressed. I was elected class representative to the Student Government Association, joined the mock trial team, and began volunteering at a local legal aid clinic. Each new activity built my confidence and expanded my world beyond the narrow confines of my hometown expectations. Professor Wilson, my political science advisor, became a key mentor during my sophomore year. After I earned the highest grade in her constitutional theory seminar, she invited me to become her research assistant. Under her guidance, I learned how to conduct rigorous academic research, analyze complex legal texts, and articulate sophisticated arguments. "You have a natural legal mind," she told me during one of our weekly meetings. "Have you considered law school after graduation?" The question opened a new vision of my future that I hadn't fully articulated before. Law school had been a vague possibility, but with Professor Wilson's encouragement, it became a concrete goal. I began tailoring my coursework and extracurricular activities toward this purpose, joining the Pre-Law Society and securing an internship at a local law firm during my sophomore year. Summer brought another decision point. I had been offered a paid position as a research assistant on campus, allowing me to stay in university housing rather than return home. I accepted without hesitation, even as I recognized the continuing expansion of distance between my past and present lives. My parents' attempts to contact me became less frequent, settling into a pattern of monthly check-ins that I answered briefly but politely. I shared basic information about my classes and activities, but kept emotional distance. It wasn't forgiveness yet, but the sharp edge of betrayal had begun to dull with time and separation. Junior year brought an unexpected opportunity, a semester abroad in London, through a special program for political science and pre-law students. The thought of being even farther from everything familiar was intimidating, but the chance to study comparative legal systems at one of the world's oldest universities was too valuable to pass up. London transformed me in ways I hadn't anticipated. Navigating a foreign city, making international friends, and studying under British professors expanded my worldview dramatically. I visited the courts, parliament, and legal institutions, developing a deeper understanding of how different systems approach justice. Weekend trips to Paris, Edinburgh, and Dublin further broadened my horizons. The physical distance also provided emotional perspective. In a small cafe near the Thames, I wrote a longer email to my parents than I had in 2 years, sharing some of my experiences and thoughts. Their response was immediate and heartfelt, without demands or recriminations. It wasn't reconciliation, but it was a small crack in the wall I had built. Back at Coastal for my senior year, I found myself more confident, focused, and at peace than ever before. I had been accepted to 3 top law schools with scholarship offers, secured a prestigious summer internship, and built a community of friends who knew and valued me for exactly who I was. As graduation approached, I faced another decision: whether to inform my family and invite them to the ceremony. After much reflection and conversations with Diana, who had become my closest friend, I sent a simple email with the date, time, and location. I didn't explicitly invite them, but left the door open for them to attend if they chose. I'm not sure if you'd want to come, but I wanted you to know I wrote the most vulnerable I had allowed myself to be with them in years. My mother's response came within minutes. We'll be there. Thank you for telling us. In the weeks before graduation, I alternated between anxiety and resolve about their potential presence. Diana helped me prepare emotionally, role-playing different scenarios and reminding me that I would be meeting them from a position of strength and accomplishment. Remember, she said the night before the ceremony, you've built this life on your own terms. No one can take that away from you, no matter what happens tomorrow. I nodded, touching the honor cords I would wear with my cap and gown. Tangible symbols of what I had achieved through my own determination. Whatever happened at graduation, I knew I had become someone my younger self would be proud of, someone who had faced betrayal and disappointment, but refused to let them define her future. Graduation morning dawned clear and perfect, the May sunshine illuminating the historic campus buildings with a golden glow. Diana and Jennifer arrived at my dorm room at 8. Armed with coffee and breakfast sandwiches, we had planned to get ready together, a final ritual of our college years. Nervous? Diana asked as she helped me pin my cap securely to my hair. Terrified, I admitted. I haven't seen them in 4 years. You look amazing, Jennifer assured me, straightening my honors sash. And accomplished. And completely independent. Remember that. The campus hummed with excited energy, families arriving with flowers and balloons, graduates taking photos on the central lawn. I felt a pang watching parents embracing their children, pride evident in every interaction. Despite everything, some part of me had missed having that kind of support. I adjusted my summa cum laude honor cords and checked my appearance one last time. The woman in the mirror looked confident in her black graduation gown, so different from the hurt, confused girl who had fled Michigan 4 years earlier. My hair was shorter, my posture straighter, my eyes clearer and more assured. As we prepared to join the processional lineup, my phone buzzed with a text from Kyle. We're here. Near the main entrance. Good luck today, sis. Proud of you. My heart rate accelerated. Until that moment, part of me hadn't truly believed they would come, despite their assurances. Now they were really here on campus, waiting to see me graduate. They're here, I told Diana, gripping her arm tightly. You've got this, she responded firmly. Just breathe. The graduates were directed to gather in the university's grand hall before processing to the outdoor ceremony. Families weren't allowed in this staging area, giving me a brief reprieve before the inevitable encounter. I found my place in line according to my major, political science, surrounded by classmates I had studied with for years. Marcus spotted me and worked his way over. Your family made it? I nodded, still processing the reality. Want us to run interference if needed? He offered. Our friend group had become fiercely protective of me after hearing my story. I'll be okay, I said, more confidently than I felt. But thank you. As we waited for the ceremony to begin, Professor Wilson came through the room, congratulating her advisees. When she reached me, she gave me a rare hug. You've been one of my most exceptional students, she said warmly. Whatever happens today with your family, remember you've earned every success through your own merit. Her words steadied me as the processional music began and we filed out of the hall toward the ceremony location on the main quad. The graduates walked in pairs down a tree-lined path where families gathered on either side. I scanned the crowd but didn't see my family among the faces. The ceremony stage had been set up in front of the university's oldest building, with rows of chairs for graduates facing it and family seating behind. As we filed into our designated rows, I glanced around but still saw no sign of my parents or Kyle. Had they changed their minds? Come all this way only to leave? The thought brought an unexpected wave of disappointment. After years of emotional distance, I was surprised by how much I suddenly wanted them to witness this moment. Just as the university president approached the podium, I noticed a commotion near the administration building to the right of the ceremony area. A woman with graying brown hair was speaking urgently to the dean of students, gesturing with clear distress. Even from a distance, I recognized my mother. The dean was shaking his head apologetically, while my mother continued speaking, increasingly agitated. My father stood a few feet behind her, looking uncomfortable in a suit that seemed slightly too large for his frame. Kyle hovered nearby, taller than I remembered, his eyes scanning the seated graduates. They were looking for me. I realized. They had the date and location correct, but hadn't understood the specific protocol for families. My brief email hadn't included detailed instructions, and they must have arrived late, missing the opportunity to find their seats before the processional. Without conscious decision, I stood from my chair. Several classmates looked at me in confusion, but I didn't care. After 4 years of separation, I wouldn't let logistical confusion prevent this reunion. My mother saw me first, even from 30 yards away. I could see the moment of recognition transform her face from distress to disbelief. She froze mid-sentence, her hand rising to cover her mouth. She nudged my father, who turned and stared, his normally impassive expression giving way to visible emotion. Kyle spotted me next, breaking into a smile and waving, unconcerned with ceremony or protocol. He looked so much older. No longer the teenager I had left behind, but a young man in his own right. For a long moment, we simply looked at each other across the distance. Years of separation compressed into a single charged moment. My mother took an instinctive step forward before the dean gently redirected her toward the family seating area. Somehow, I made it through the ceremony, though I remember little of the speeches or proceedings. My attention kept drifting to where my family sat, still hardly believing they were actually there. When my name was called to receive my diploma, Stephanie Anderson, summa cum laude, the university president announced I found myself searching for their faces in the crowd. They were standing. All 3 of them. My mother was openly crying, my father was applauding with unusual enthusiasm, and Kyle whistled loudly enough to draw looks from nearby families. Despite everything that had happened, despite all the hurt and distance, their pride was unmistakable. After the ceremony ended and graduates dispersed to find their families, I stood uncertainly, scanning the crowd. Diana squeezed my arm in silent support before leaving to find her own parents. I spotted them near a large oak tree, slightly apart from the main crowd. My mother saw me at the same moment and rushed forward, stopping a few feet away as if unsure of her welcome. "Stephanie," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "You look so beautiful, so grown up." I hadn't expected the wave of feeling that swept through me at hearing her voice in person after so long. "Hi, Mom," I managed, my own voice unsteady. My father approached more cautiously, his expression a complex mixture of pride, regret, and uncertainty. "Congratulations," he said formally, then added in a softer tone, "We are so proud of you." Kyle broke the tension, stepping forward to wrap me in a bear hug that lifted me off my feet. "You did it, sis. And you didn't tell us you were graduating top of your class." "Not quite top," I corrected automatically as he set me down. "Just summa cum laude." "Just summa," he repeated with a grin. "No big deal." We moved to a quieter area away from the main celebration, finding seats at a small table near the campus coffee shop. The initial awkwardness gave way to careful conversation. I learned that Kyle had matured considerably, working his way up at the dealership from service department to sales, now taking business classes at the community college. My father had experienced health problems, explaining his weight loss, but was recovering well. My mother had gone back to school herself, finishing the nursing degree she had abandoned when she became pregnant with me. "We've wanted to contact you so many times," My mother said, reaching tentatively for my hand across the table. But we wanted to respect your space. And we didn't know what to say, my father admitted, surprising me with his candor. How to make things right. Kyle looked between us, then spoke with unexpected insight. I didn't understand back then what a big deal it was, the whole truck thing. I was just excited to get something cool. But later, when I thought about it, he shook his head. It wasn't fair, Steph. Not at all. No, my father agreed quietly. It wasn't. The simple acknowledgement, after years of justification and rationalization, felt like a door opening between us. Not forgiveness. Not yet, but possibility. Would you, my mother began hesitantly. Would you have dinner with us tonight? To celebrate your graduation. I considered for a moment, then nodded. I'd like that. As we walked toward the campus exit, my graduation gown billowing slightly in the spring breeze, I felt a complicated mixture of emotions. The journey wasn't over, the healing incomplete, but this day marked a new beginning on my terms. I had built my future through my own determination, and now I could choose whether to include them in it, from a position of strength rather than dependency. Your university is beautiful, my mother commented, looking around at the historic buildings and flowering trees. Yes, I agreed, feeling a surge of pride in what had become my home. It really is. That evening, we had dinner at Coastal Harbor, an upscale restaurant overlooking the water. It was the first time we had shared a meal as a family in 4 years, and the conversation flowed more easily than I had expected, lubricated by good food and the natural high of graduation day. My mother asked thoughtful questions about my studies and activities, genuinely interested in the life I had built. My father, never verbose, listened attentively and occasionally asked surprisingly perceptive questions about my plans for law school. Kyle kept the mood light with stories from the dealership and updates on neighbors and old friends from home. The house feels different without you, my mother said during dessert. Empty in a way that has nothing to do with physical space. My father nodded in agreement. We made mistakes, Stephanie. Serious ones. It wasn't a full apology, but it was an acknowledgement. A starting point. 2 months later, I moved to New York to begin my position at Coleman and Bradshaw, a prestigious law firm specializing in corporate law. My small apartment in Brooklyn became my sanctuary, decorated with carefully chosen items that represented my new life artwork from my semester in London, photos with my college friends, law books and political biographies lining the shelves. I established clear boundaries with my family, scheduled phone calls every other Sunday, occasional emails, limited visits on my terms and my territory. When they suggested coming to New York for Thanksgiving, I agreed, but arranged for them to stay at a hotel rather than with me, knowing we all needed space to navigate our evolving relationship. Kyle's relationship with our parents had changed too. He had moved into his own apartment and was paying for his business classes himself, insisting on independence despite their offers of financial help. I want to do it on my own, like you did, he told me during one of our increasingly frequent phone calls. My early professional success brought a different kind of confidence. My first year at the firm, I was assigned to a high-profile corporate merger case and praised for my thorough research and analysis. The partner I worked under, Elaine Montgomery, became another important mentor, showing me how to navigate the male-dominated legal world with grace and steel. 6 months after graduation, my mother came to visit me alone. We spent a weekend exploring New York, finding common ground in art museums and bookstores. In my apartment on the second evening, over glasses of wine, we had the conversation I had been both dreading and needing. I failed you, she said simply, tears in her eyes. As a mother, I should have fought harder for fairness. Why didn't you? I asked, the question that had haunted me for years. She was silent for a long moment. Fear, she finally said. Your father has always been the decision-maker, especially about money. And there was always this unspoken expectation that you would be fine no matter what because you were so capable, while Kyle needed more support. That's not fair to either of us, I pointed out. It underestimated him and abandoned me. I know that now, she agreed quietly. Watching you build this life completely on your own, it's shown me how wrong we were. And how strong you are. The reconciliation with my father took longer and came in smaller increments. He was a man of few words and less emotional insight, but I began to see his efforts to change in small ways. He asked about my cases and actually listened to my answers. He sent articles about legal issues he thought might interest me. When he and my mother visited New York together, he suggested we visit the Supreme Court, a gesture of respect for my chosen path. During their second visit, nearly a year after graduation, he and I took a walk through Central Park while my mother visited a museum. I was wrong, he said abruptly as we paused on a bridge overlooking the lake. About college being a waste of money. About a lot of things. Coming from him, it was equivalent to a lengthy apology. Why the truck, Dad? I asked, needing to understand the decision that had changed everything. He sighed heavily. Honestly, I saw myself in Kyle. The boy who liked cars and sports, not books and studying. I never understood your world of ideas and arguments. It was easier to connect with him, to see what he needed. He paused. That's no excuse. Just the truth. It wasn't complete healing, but it was a start, a genuine acknowledgement rather than justification or denial. Over the next few years, we built a new kind of family relationship, one based on adult respect rather than childhood dynamics. We created new traditions: a summer weekend at the beach, Thanksgiving in New York, occasional meetups in Chicago, neutral territory for all of us. Therapy helped me process the past and build healthier relationships moving forward. Dr. Levine, my therapist, guided me through the complex work of forgiveness that doesn't require forgetting. Forgiveness isn't saying what happened was okay, she reminded me during one session. It's choosing to not let the hurt control your future. My professional success continued, with a promotion to junior partner at the firm 3 years after joining. My personal life flourished too, with deep friendships and eventually a relationship with Thomas, another attorney who understood my drive and independence because he shared it. The wisdom I gained through my journey shaped every aspect of my life. I learned that self-worth can't depend on others' validation, that independence is both empowering and occasionally lonely, that family can be both given and chosen. Most importantly, I learned that pain, when faced directly, can transform into strength and clarity. I began mentoring young women from backgrounds similar to mine, especially those trying to navigate higher education without family support. Sharing my story helped them see possibilities beyond their current circumstances, and their determination reminded me of my younger self. The relationship with my parents continues to evolve, neither perfect nor broken beyond repair. We approach each other with more honesty now, acknowledging past hurts rather than pretending they never happened. My father still occasionally falls into old patterns of thinking, but now recognizes and corrects himself more quickly. My mother has found her voice, both with him and in her new career as a nurse. Kyle and I have developed a stronger adult relationship than I ever would have predicted during those painful days after the truck incident. He finished his business degree and now manages the dealership where he once worked in the service department. He understands now what he couldn't see then, and his genuine remorse helped heal one of the deepest wounds. Looking back on that day when I walked into my graduation ceremony and saw my family for the first time in 4 years, I recognize it as a pivotal moment, a collision of past and present, of hurt and hope. The journey since then hasn't been linear or perfect, but it has been authentic. The greatest gift of my experience has been the unshakable knowledge that I can stand on my own, that my success comes from within, not from external approval or support. That certainty provides a foundation that can't be shaken by others' actions or opinions. If you've ever felt betrayed by family, overlooked in favor of someone else, or forced to create your own path when support was withdrawn, know that your worth isn't determined by their actions. Sometimes the most powerful response to unfairness isn't confrontation but quiet. Determined success built on your own terms. Have you ever had to rebuild a relationship after deep hurt or betrayal? What helped you move forward? Share your experiences in the comments below. If my story resonated with you, please like and subscribe for more real-life journeys of overcoming family challenges. Thank you for listening to my story. And remember that sometimes the most difficult paths lead to the strongest versions of ourselves.